In a faraway corner of space, humans and aliens lived side by side. It wasn't always easy, but they managed to keep the peace. At the center of it all was a group called the Synod. These were no ordinary beings. They were wise, ancient creatures who had seen centuries pass before humanity even dreamed of leaving Earth. Their job was to mediate between different species, making sure everyone played nice. For decades, things went smoothly enough. But deep down, tension simmered. Humanity had spread across the stars, building colonies on distant planets. Some of these places were rough, with harsh climates and limited resources. Still, people made it work because that's what humans do. They adapt, survive, and thrive. But lately, something was wrong. Reports started coming in from the outer colonies' attacks. Small at first, almost like accidents. A supply ship missing here, a communication tower destroyed there. No one paid much attention at first. Space is vast after all, and accidents happen. But then the attacks grew bolder. Entire outposts were wiped out. Families disappeared overnight. Survivors spoke of strange ships lurking in the shadows, attacking without warning. Panic spread among the settlers. Back on Earth, leaders tried to calm everyone down. It's just pirates, they said. Or maybe some rogue faction trying to stir up trouble. They assured the public that everything was under control. But not everyone believed them. One person who didn't buy it was Captain Vega. She was stationed at one of the most remote outposts, a place few people cared about unless something bad happened. And something bad had happened. Her team had been investigating the wreckage of a transport ship when they found something odd. Scratches on the hull weren't random. They followed a pattern. Someone or something had deliberately targeted this ship. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't pirates either. This was calculated. Vega knew she couldn't ignore what she'd found. She sent her report back to Earth, urging them to take action. But instead of getting support, she got silence. Days turned into weeks, and nothing changed. Frustrated, Vega decided to dig deeper. Using her connections, she accessed classified files that weren't meant for her eyes. What she discovered shocked her. Years ago, the Synod had approached Earth's leaders with a warning. There were factions within their own ranks or groups who saw humanity as a threat. These factions wanted to test humanity's strength, to push them until they snapped. The Synod begged Earth to act, to stop these rogue elements before they cause real damage. But Earth refused. Diplomacy came first. They didn't want to upset the delicate balance they'd worked so hard to build. So, they did nothing. Now, those same rogue factions had grown stronger. They weren't just testing anymore. They were attacking. And the Synod? They looked the other way, hoping it would blow over. Vega felt anger rising in her chest. How could they let this happen? How could they sit back while innocent lives were lost? As she pieced together the puzzle, Vega realized something else. The attacks weren't just about testing humanity's strength. They were also sending a message meant for Earth's leaders. You ignored us once, the rogues seemed to say. Don't make the same mistake again. Back on Earth, the situation grew worse. News outlets picked up on the attacks, spreading fear and outrage. People demanded answers. Why hadn't the government protected them? Why hadn't they listened to the Synod's warnings? Protests erupted in major cities, calling for justice. Some voices called for war, not just against the rogue factions, but against the entire Synod. Others pleaded for restraint, arguing that breaking ties with the Council would leave humanity vulnerable. Caught in the middle were ordinary citizens, scared and confused. They didn't know who to trust. Was the Synod really their ally, or were they part of the problem? Could humanity stand alone if it came to that? Or would they crumble under the weight of their own pride? For Vega, the answer was clear. Humanity couldn't afford to wait any longer. If Earth's leaders wouldn't act, someone else had to. But taking matters into her own hands wouldn't be easy. Every move she made felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong step, and she could lose everything, including her life. Still, she pressed on. Late one night, hunched over her desk, Vega intercepted a transmission. It was faint, almost drowned out by static, but she caught enough to understand its meaning. The Synod was begging for mercy, for understanding, for anything that might prevent war. But it wasn't Earth they were pleading with. It was someone else. Someone powerful. Someone dangerous. The message ended abruptly, leaving Vega with more questions than answers. Who were they talking to? And why did it feel like humanity was being set up to take the fall? As dawn broke over the outpost, Vega stared out at the horizon. Somewhere out there, forces were moving, shaping the future of two civilizations. All she could do was prepare for whatever came next. Captain Vega couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something big. The transmission she'd intercepted gnawed at her mind like a puzzle with pieces that didn't quite fit. Who were the Synod begging? And why did it feel like humanity was being dragged into something much larger than anyone realized? She knew she needed answers, but every step forward seemed to lead to more questions. The classified file she'd uncovered earlier hinted at a deeper conspiracy. Earth's leaders had ignored warnings from the Synod about rogue factions within their ranks. These factions weren't just testing humanity. They were actively working to provoke a war. But why? What did they stand to gain by turning two civilizations against each other? Vega decided to dig deeper, even if it meant crossing lines she'd never crossed before. Her first move was to reach out to an old contact. This person wasn't exactly trustworthy. No one in this game was, but they had access to information most people didn't. Vega arranged a secret meeting on a neutral station, far from prying eyes. When she arrived, the contact was already waiting, looking nervous and glancing over their shoulder every few seconds. I shouldn't be doing this, the contact muttered as soon as Vega sat down. If anyone finds out... Relax, Vega said, keeping her tone calm but firm. I'm not asking for anything illegal. Just tell me what you know. The contact hesitated, then slid a data chip across the table. This is everything I could gather. It's not good. Vega plugged the chip into her tablet and started scrolling through the contents. Her heart sank with every new revelation. The rogue factions weren't small groups operating on their own. They were part of a larger movement, funded and supported by powerful figures within the Synod itself. These figures saw humanity as a threat to their dominance. They believed humans were too ambitious, too unpredictable. In their eyes, wiping out human colonies was a way to assert control before it was too late. But there was more. Buried deep in the files was evidence that some of Earth's leaders might have known about these plans all along. Not just the attacks, but the funding behind them. Someone high up in the government had been playing both sides, feeding information to the rogues while pretending to negotiate peace with the Synod. Vega felt sick to her stomach. How could anyone betray their own people like that? As she absorbed the information, Vega realized the scope of the problem. This wasn't just about rogue aliens or greedy politicians. It was about trust. Humanity trusted the Synod to keep the peace. The Synod trusted Earth to act responsibly. Both sides had failed. Now, ordinary people were paying the price. Back in her outpost, Vega shared her findings with her closest advisors. She expected shock, maybe even anger. Instead, she got silence. One of her team members, a young officer who had always been loyal, spoke up hesitantly. What if we're wrong? What if attacking the Synod is exactly what the rogues want? It was a valid point. If humanity retaliated, it would give the rogue factions the excuse they needed to escalate the conflict. War would follow, and no one would come out unscathed. Vega knew the officer was right, but she also knew they couldn't sit back and do nothing. Innocent lives were at stake. Every day they delayed, more people died. Meanwhile, tensions on Earth reached a boiling point. Protests turned violent as people demanded action. Some called for independence from the Synod, arguing that humanity didn't need their help to survive. Others wanted unity, insisting that breaking ties would leave them vulnerable to attack. The media fueled the fire, broadcasting conflicting reports that only added to the confusion. In the middle of it all, Vega became an unwilling symbol of resistance. People looked to her for guidance, even though she didn't ask for it. Her face appeared on news feeds worldwide, alongside headlines calling her a hero or a traitor, depending on who you asked. She didn't care about the attention. She just wanted to stop the bloodshed. One evening, as she reviewed the latest intel, Vega received another message. This time, it came directly from the Synod. An ambassador requested a private meeting, claiming they had urgent information. Suspicious but curious, Vega agreed. The meeting took place aboard a neutral ship, floating silently in orbit around a barren moon. The ambassador was unlike any Synod member Vega had ever met. Their voice carried a weight of sadness, as if they carried the burden of centuries on their shoulders. "We tried to warn you," the ambassador began, their words heavy with regret. "We begged your leaders to listen, but they refused. Now, the damage is done." Vega listened carefully, trying to read between the lines. The ambassador confirmed what she already suspected. The rogue factions were stronger than anyone realized. They had infiltrated key systems, manipulating events from the shadows. Worse still, they had allies within humanity's ranks. People in positions of power who stood to benefit from chaos. "What do you want from us?" Vega asked finally, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "We want peace," the ambassador replied. "But we cannot achieve it alone. You must help us root out the rogues. Together, we can restore balance." It sounded simple enough, but Vega knew better. Nothing about this situation was simple. Trust had been broken, and rebuilding it wouldn't happen overnight. Still, she nodded. "I'll do what I can. But my people won't forgive easily. Neither will yours." The ambassador bowed their head in acknowledgement. "Understood. We will provide whatever assistance we can. But time is running out." As Vega returned to her outpost, she couldn't shake the feeling that the ambassador was holding something back. There was desperation in their voice, a sense of urgency that went beyond mere politics. Whatever was coming, it was bigger than anyone imagined. That night, Vega stared at the stars through the viewport of her quarters. Each pinprick of light represented a world, a civilization, a story waiting to unfold. For now, those stories hung in the balance. The choices made in the coming days would shape the future of two species, and possibly the galaxy itself. She thought about the people counting on her, the families who had lost loved ones, the children growing up in fear, the soldiers ready to fight for a cause they barely understood. All of them deserved better. They deserved the truth. With a deep breath, Vega made a decision. She would expose the conspiracy, no matter the cost. She would force both sides to confront their mistakes and find a way forward. Because if she didn't, no one else would. The weight of the truth was heavy, and Captain Vega felt it pressing down on her with every passing moment. She had uncovered secrets that could tear apart two civilizations or bring them together. The choice was hers to make, but she knew one thing for certain. Staying silent wasn't an option. The people deserved to know what was really happening, even if the truth hurt. Vega called a meeting with her closest advisors. They gathered in the dimly lit briefing room of her outpost, the air thick with tension. She laid out everything she'd learned. The rogue factions within the Synod, the betrayal by Earth's leaders, and the ambassador's plea for help. At first, there was silence. Then, the questions started pouring in. "What do we do now?" One officer asked, his voice trembling. If we go public with this, it'll cause chaos. And if we don't, another countered, the attacks will keep coming. More people will die. Vega nodded. She understood their fears. Going public meant risking everything: trust, alliances, maybe even her career. But keeping quiet meant letting the rogues win. That wasn't something she was willing to do. "We need proof," she said finally. "Something undeniable. Something that shows everyone, humanity and the Synod, that we're telling the truth." Her team agreed. Proof was the key. Without it, no one would believe them. But finding that proof wouldn't be easy. It was hidden deep within enemy territory, guarded by forces loyal to the rogue factions. Vega knew it was a dangerous mission, but she also knew it was necessary. She began assembling a team for the task. These weren't just soldiers. They were survivors, thinkers, and fighters who understood what was at stake. Each member brought something unique to the table. One was an expert in alien tech, another a master strategist, and a third a skilled pilot who could navigate the most treacherous parts of space. Together, they formed a unit capable of taking on the impossible. Before they left, Vega made sure everyone understood the risks. "This isn't just about stopping the rogues," she told them. "It's about showing both sides that we can work together. If we fail, it won't just be us who pays the price. It'll be everyone." The journey to enemy territory was long and grueling. The ship they traveled in was small and outdated, designed to avoid detection rather than impress. As they approached their destination, Vega couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. This wasn't just uncharted space, it was hostile territory. Every move they made could be their last. Their target was a remote station orbiting a dead planet. According to intel, it housed records of the rogue faction's operations communications, funding trails, everything needed to expose the conspiracy. But getting inside wouldn't be easy. The station was heavily fortified, with patrols circling it like vultures waiting for prey. Vega and her team spent hours planning their approach. They decided to split up, creating diversions to draw attention away from the main objective. It was risky, but it was their best shot. As they prepared to execute the plan, Vega gave one final pep talk. "Stick to the mission," she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "No matter what happens, we get the data and get out." "Understood?" Her team nodded, determination etched on their faces. With that, they launched their attack. The diversion worked better than expected. Explosions lit up the darkness as decoy drones drew the enemy's focus. Meanwhile, Vega and her team slipped through the chaos, making their way to the station undetected. Inside, they moved quickly, downloading files and planting beacons to mark their path. But just as they thought they were in the clear, alarms blared. Someone had spotted them. Panic threatened to take over, but Vega forced herself to stay calm. "We're not done yet," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Keep moving." They fought their way through corridors filled with enemies, relying on speed and precision to stay alive. Shots rang out, echoing off metal walls. Sparks flew as bullets hit consoles and bulkheads. Through it all, Vega kept her eyes on the prize. The data was almost complete. They just needed a few more seconds. Finally, the download finished. Vega grabbed the device containing the files and signaled for her team to fall back. They retraced their steps, dodging fire and narrowly avoiding capture. Just when it seemed like they wouldn't make it, their ship came into view. The pilot had stayed behind, ready to extract them at a moment's notice. As they climbed aboard and blasted off into space, Vega allowed herself a brief moment of relief. They'd done it. They had the proof they needed. But the battle wasn't over yet. Back at the outpost, Vega reviewed the files. What she found confirmed her worst fears. The rogue factions weren't just attacking human colonies. They were targeting key Synod members too. Anyone who opposed them was marked for elimination. Worse still, the files revealed ties between the rogues and influential figures within Earth's government. Corruption ran deeper than anyone imagined. Vega knew she had to act fast. She reached out to trusted allies, sharing the evidence and urging them to spread the word. At first, skepticism reigned. People didn't want to believe that their leaders were complicit in such atrocities. But as more details emerged, the tide began to turn. On Earth, protests intensified. People demanded accountability, calling for the removal of corrupt officials. Some leaders tried to deny the allegations, but the evidence was overwhelming. Slowly but surely, the truth came to light. Meanwhile, the Synod faced its own reckoning. The ambassador who had met with Vega stepped forward, denouncing the rogue factions and pledging support for humanity. It was a bold move, one that risked alienating powerful allies. But it was also a necessary step toward healing Dodd as the pieces fell into place. Vega realized how far they'd come. What started as a desperate attempt to uncover the truth had grown into something much bigger, a movement for justice and unity. Both humans and aliens were beginning to see that their futures were intertwined. If they wanted peace, they would have to fight for it together. But the road ahead was far from smooth. Trust had been shattered, and rebuilding it would take time. For now, Vega focused on the next step. The data they'd retrieved pointed to a hidden weapon, an artifact capable of tipping the scales in their favor. Finding it wouldn't be easy, but Vega knew it was worth the risk. As she stared at the stars once again, Vega felt a flicker of hope. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, but it was also full of possibilities. Whatever came next, she was ready. The artifact was real. That much was clear from the data Captain Vega and her team had risked their lives to retrieve. It wasn't just a weapon, it was something far older, far more powerful. The files described it as a relic from a forgotten age, created by an ancient civilization that had long since vanished. Its purpose? To bring balance or destruction, depending on who wielded it. But finding the artifact wouldn't be easy. According to the intel, it was hidden deep within contested territory, a stretch of space claimed by both humanity and the rogue factions. This region was a no-man's land, filled with abandoned stations, asteroid fields, and patrols that never slept. Anyone venturing there was either very brave or very foolish. Vega knew she fell into the former category, but even she couldn't deny the danger they were walking into. Before setting out, Vega gathered her team for one last briefing. They sat around a table cluttered with maps, holographic projections, and hastily scribbled notes. The mood was tense but focused. Everyone understood what was at stake. If they succeeded, they could change the course of history. If they failed, the war would escalate, and countless lives would be lost. "We're going in blind," Vega admitted, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "We don't know what we'll face out there. But we do know this. We can't let the rogues get to the artifact first." Her team nodded, their expressions grim but determined. They had been through worse together, and they trusted Vega to lead them through whatever came next. She assigned roles, ensuring everyone knew their part. Some would handle navigation, others defense, and a few would focus on decoding any alien tech they encountered along the way. Every detail mattered. Every second counted. As the ship slipped into contested territory, the crew stayed alert. The area was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that made your skin crawl. Floating debris drifted past the windows, remnants of battles fought long ago. Occasionally, they spotted the wreckage of ships, their hulls scarred by weapons fire. It was a graveyard, a reminder of what happened when diplomacy failed. Hours passed without incident, but the calm only heightened their unease. Vega paced the bridge, her eyes glued to the scanners. Then, finally, the ship's sensors picked up something, a faint energy signature emanating from a nearby moon. It matched the description in the files. "There," Vega said, pointing to the display. "That's where we need to go." The moon was barren, its surface pockmarked with craters and jagged cliffs. Landing would be tricky, but they managed it without attracting too much attention. As soon as they stepped onto the rocky terrain, the air felt different. It wasn't just the cold or the emptiness. It was something deeper, almost primal. Like the moon itself was watching them. They followed the energy signature to a cave system carved into the side of a massive crater. Inside, the walls glowed faintly with an otherworldly light. Strange symbols etched into the stone pulsed in rhythm, as if alive. The deeper they went, the heavier the atmosphere became. It was like walking into the heart of a dream or a nightmare. At the center of the cave stood the artifact. It was smaller than Vega expected, about the size of a human fist, but its presence was overwhelming. The object seemed to hum with power, vibrating in tune with the symbols on the walls. It looked simple enough, just a smooth, metallic sphere, but there was no mistaking its importance. "This is it," Vega whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum. "This changes everything." But as she reached out to touch it, a figure emerged from the shadows. At first glance, it appeared humanoid, but closer inspection revealed something else entirely. Its skin shimmered like liquid metal, and its eyes glowed with an intensity that made it hard to look directly at them. This wasn't just a guardian, it was a being from another time, another dimension. "You should not be here," the creature said, its voice echoing as though spoken by many voices at once. "The artifact is not meant for you." Vega froze, her hand hovering inches from the sphere. "We didn't come here to hurt anyone," she replied, keeping her tone calm but firm. "We came to stop a war your people started." The creature tilted its head, studying her with an expression that was neither hostile nor friendly. "War is inevitable," it said. "Balance must be maintained. Destruction follows creation. This is the cycle." "That's not good enough," Vega shot back. "People are dying, innocent people. We have a chance to end this before it goes any further. Help us." For a moment, the creature was silent. Then it raised a hand, and the symbols on the walls flared brighter. Images flooded the cave, visions of battles, of civilizations rising and falling, of hope and despair intertwined. Vega realized these weren't just random scenes. They were memories, fragments of the galaxy's history. "The artifact does not choose sides," the creature said finally. "It chooses those who seek harmony over chaos. Prove yourselves worthy, and it will answer your call." With that, the creature vanished, leaving Vega and her team alone with the artifact. For a moment, no one moved. The weight of the situation pressed down on them. Were they truly ready for this? Could they shoulder the responsibility of wielding such power? Vega took a deep breath and turned to her team. "We've come too far to turn back now. Let's do this for everyone counting on us." One by one, they approached the artifact, placing their hands on its surface. A surge of energy coursed through them, filling their minds with knowledge and understanding. It wasn't just raw power, it was insight, a glimpse into the interconnectedness of all life. When they pulled away, the artifact dimmed slightly, as if acknowledging their bond. They secured it carefully, knowing it was both a tool and a test. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. As they made their way back to the ship, Vega couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest part was yet to come. The artifact was safe in their possession, but using it wouldn't be simple. Both humanity and the Synod would want answers and possibly control. The choices they made in the coming days would shape the future of two species and perhaps the galaxy itself. For now, though, Vega allowed herself a small measure of relief. Against all odds, they had succeeded. The artifact was theirs, and with it, a chance to rewrite the story of their fractured alliance. The journey back to Earth felt longer than the trip out. Captain Vega sat in the cockpit, staring at the artifact secured in its containment unit. It was quiet now, no longer glowing or humming with energy, but she could still feel its presence, like a heartbeat faintly echoing in the background. Whatever it wasn't just a tool, it was alive, aware, and waiting. Her team was exhausted but triumphant. They had done the impossible, retrieving something that could change everything. But Vega knew better than to celebrate too soon. The artifact wasn't a magic solution. It was a responsibility. Using it would require wisdom, restraint, and trust, qualities that were in short supply these days. When they arrived on Earth, chaos greeted them. News of their mission had leaked somehow, spreading faster than anyone expected. Crowds gathered outside government buildings, demanding answers. Some cheered for Vega and her team, calling them heroes. Others shouted accusations, claiming they had betrayed humanity by working with the Synod. The divide between those who wanted peace and those who wanted vengeance grew wider by the hour. Vega ignored the noise as best she could. She had more pressing matters to deal with. The artifact needed to be studied, understood before it could be used. But time was running out. Attacks on human colonies continued, each one bolder than the last. The rogue factions weren't going to wait while humanity figured things out. They were pushing harder. Testing limits. Vega arranged a meeting with Earth's leaders and representatives from the Synod. The room was tense, filled with people who didn't trust each other but had no choice but to work together. Vega stood at the center, the artifact resting on a table in front of her. All eyes were on her as she began to speak. "This isn't about revenge," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "It's about survival for all of us. The rogues want war because they think it'll give them power. But if we fight back the way they expect us to, we're playing right into their hands." She paused, letting her words sink in. "This artifact is our chance to do something different, to prove that we can rise above fear and anger. But using it won't be easy. It requires cooperation, not just between humans and the Synod, but within our own ranks. If we can't come together, then nothing else matters." For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, questions began to pour in. How did the artifact work? What kind of power did it hold? Could it really stop the rogues without causing more harm? Vega answered as best she could, explaining what she and her team had learned during their brief encounter with the Guardian. The artifact wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a key, a way to restore balance. But it wouldn't force anyone to act wisely. That part was up to them. The discussion dragged on for hours, with arguments breaking out over every detail. Some wanted to use the artifact immediately, striking back at the rogues with overwhelming force. Others argued for caution, warning that misusing it could have catastrophic consequences. Vega listened carefully, weighing each perspective. In the end, she made the call. "We're not using it to attack," she declared. "We're using it to negotiate. The rogues want control, but they've shown they're willing to destroy anything that gets in their way. We need to show them and everyone else that there's another path. One where we don't have to tear each other apart to survive." Her decision wasn't popular with everyone, but it earned enough support to move forward. A joint task force was formed, consisting of humans and Synod members working side by side. Together, they developed a plan to confront the rogue factions, not with violence, but with diplomacy backed by the artifact's undeniable power. The operation took place on a remote, stationed deep in contested territory. Vega led the team, flanked by trusted allies from both sides. As they approached the rogue's stronghold, tension crackled in the air. Every step felt heavier than the last. Knowing they were walking into the lion's den. Inside, they found the rogue leaders gathered around a massive holotable, plotting their next move. When Vega and her team entered, the room fell silent. For a moment, no one moved. Then, one of the leaders stepped forward, sneering. "You're too late," he spat. "Your colonies are already falling. You can't stop us." Vega didn't respond right away. Instead, she placed the artifact on the table between them. The room seemed to vibrate as the sphere activated, glowing softly. The symbols etched into its surface shifted and pulsed, casting strange shadows across the walls. "What is this?" the leader demanded, his confidence wavering. "It's proof," Vega said simply. "Proof that we know what you've done. Proof that we're stronger when we work together. And proof that your actions have consequences." One by one, the rogues backed down. They couldn't deny the truth laid bare before them. The artifact didn't judge it, simply revealed. It showed them the cost of their choices, the lives destroyed, the futures lost. Some tried to argue, but their voices faltered. Others looked away, unable to face what they'd become. In the end, the rogue factions agreed to stand down, but only after Vega promised to share the artifact's knowledge with everyone. Not as a weapon, but as a guide. A reminder that power without purpose leads only to ruin. Back on Earth, the response was mixed. Some hailed Vega as a savior, crediting her with averting disaster. Others accused her of being naive, warning that trusting the Synod, or even the rogues, was a mistake. But for the first time in years, there was hope. People began talking again, reaching out across divides they once thought insurmountable. Vega watched it all unfold from afar. She didn't seek recognition or reward. Her job was done for now. The galaxy was still far from perfect, and old wounds would take time to heal. But she believed in the possibility of change. After all, she had seen it firsthand. As she stared out at the stars one last time, Vega allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and emerged stronger, not because of vengeance, but because of courage, unity, and the willingness to try something new. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, it felt worth traveling. And somewhere, deep in the void of space, the artifact hummed quietly, ready to guide whoever dared to dream of a better future.